Chris Rock said something really interesting. He said, women would run the world if they didn't hate each other. That's the only thing that keeps them from running this whole planet, is that we hate each other.
Girls just, I don't know. There's just this vibe sometimes, unless you don't know the girl. There's a vibe in the beginning, you know? There's just this competition. I mean, girls can be really mean. I think mainly because they're like, so many girls are so insecure, especially when you're going through your teenage years and you don't know who you are, so you're trying to be anything that like feels slightly comfortable.
That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen.
When Mean Girls came out in 2004, it was revolutionary. No other film at this point had portrayed female cattiness in such a realistic way. When folks talk about this film, the things that mostly come to mind are the comedy or the witty one-liners. But it's not very often that people will go into a conversation about its depth, and it has a lot of it. In fact, I see this film as a warning to feminists of the time who falsely believed that all problems of equal rights for women and men could be solved with legislation and the normalization of professional working women. And I think this is something we're just barely starting to catch on to. If you don't believe me, go watch the Barbie movie right now and then come back to this video. So what does this iconic film teach us about feminism? Well, it confronts us with the unfortunate reality that women have and will always be in competition with one another. You could trace this all the way back to the last millennium. Women were literally competing in the marriage market in order to find husbands so that they could marry and provide children, hopefully men, who would pass on the family lines. That was their purpose. That was their role in society. Another contributing factor is the idea that throughout the history of time, women have tended to outnumber men greatly. And when your role in society is to find a husband, that makes it difficult to do so because it means that not everyone is going to come out on top. There will be women who don't find husbands, and those women tend to suffer socially as a result. This created an undeniable competitiveness and tension among women that, despite the great progress we've made in society, has still remained prevalent. Mean Girls establishes 4 mediums through which we're able to see how female cattiness is prevalent today. The first is through the diversity of its female characters. The second is through the scarcity of resources that these women have. The third is the sisterhood. And the fourth is the school bus. Let's take a look at the first, the diversity of its female characters. Girls are all so different, and it's awesome. However, we can only realize how awesome this actually is when we understand that our differences are not what causes the tension. You get a variety of characters in this film, and they are all equally part of the problem. The girls in the plastics are all best friends, and they're all quite similar to each other. Yet, not one of them trusts each other. They all gossip, and they all hurt each other constantly for different reasons. Then we have Katie, the fish out of water. She's susceptible to the influence of literally anyone and everyone, and quickly learns the reality of female rivalry. Then we have Janicean, the bitter mean girl who is angry at Regina George for spreading rumors that she's a lesbian. Now, what do all these girls have in common? They see a certain person as their biggest problem, and not the toxic system and environment that brought them to that point in the first place. What's the point? Friendships and having things in common with someone does not save you from female rivalry. Only understanding its true roots and the reality of its perseverance in society can do that. Point number 2. The scarcity of resources. Boys, friends, status, medals. These are just a few examples in Mean Girls of the limited resources women compete for. As I mentioned earlier, women have a history of competing against one another, and that continues to this day, even as we have gained more freedoms and rights. One of the biggest examples of this is the competition of women in male-dominated fields that already favor men and make it difficult for women to succeed within their spheres. The mathletes competition is one big example of this. While Katie initially does not want to join out of fear of committing what Regina and Damien call social suicide, she eventually does decide to go as a favor for Miss Norbury. And during this competition, as she comes up against Carolyn Kraft, she starts picking apart her looks. And this is the moment where Katie has her realization that female competitiveness is only holding women back. and it's not going to help them be more successful in any area of life, whether they want to get married, whether they're competing with women in a male-dominated field, or anything else. All you can do in life is try and solve the problem right in front of you. Erin Samuels represents the persistent competition among women to attain what they consider the ideal or dream man. Kind, popular, and very handsome. Guys like this are few and far between, and the evident competition between Katie and Regina to win his affection is just all too familiar. Gretchen and Regina's relationship represents women's desire, as contradictory as it sounds to the premise of this video, to be accepted and elevated by other women. Gretchen goes to any lengths necessary to gain Regina's favoritism among the group, be it through gossip, kissing up, acceptance of tyranny and abuse, etc. Regina recognizes this and uses it to her advantage to keep herself at the top. The lunchroom seating system also highlights how certain positions in life tend to relegate women to a specific status, depending on which route you chose to take in life, or maybe what your interests are and how far they deviate from other women's interests. In the 1960s, if you were a working woman and unmarried, you were more of a social outcast. Whereas today, it's the complete opposite, and stay-at-home mothers tend to be called backwards-thinking women and are accused of playing into the patriarchy. Both instances of criticism are wrong. It's just as wrong as telling a girl that she can't sit with you at your lunch table because you're wearing the wrong outfit on the wrong day. Point number 3, the sisterhood. Greta Gerwig and America Ferrera said it best.
You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful.
Pick-me's, MILFs, queens, these are just some of the labels assigned to women and are often used by other women to determine who truly are part of the sisterhood and who are the backwards anti-feminists. Our opinions of the characters in Mean Girls have changed over time, and as hyper-femininity is making a comeback, we look back at stereotypes of women like Regina George, who is both feminine and villainous. She exemplifies how threats to the sisterhood come from within the sphere of femininity and our demonization of people like her. The biggest point of focus on sisterhood in the film is Katie's pursuit of Aaron. Her attraction to him is immediately written off by Gretchen as a violation of the rules of feminism, despite the fact that Regina is completely over him. Her friendship with Janice also highlights the tragedy of betrayal within genuine female friendships. It shows us how hard it truly is to get away from this long-existing, unspoken tension. You might even have to face the fact that their friendship, while not founded on Janice's need to get revenge on Regina, eventually becomes consumed by it. Katie doesn't even care to hang out with Janice and Damien once she has the plastics under her thumb, once their plan is essentially complete. Ultimately, we are imperfect. We are not always going to live up to the standards of the sisterhood, and that's fine. And honestly, Tina Fey had it right. When we verbally and physically attack one another, it doesn't make sense that we would complain when men do it to us. And I know that I've built this whole argument on the idea that this is deeply rooted in ancient societal expectations of women. We have helped build and shape these roles as much as men. And we have immense agency now that we have the power to take back the sisterhood and truly encourage and build one another up. Point number 4, that school bus. It's really fitting that the last scene of this film is Katie imagining that the next generation of plastics are ran over by that infamous school bus. However, we are reassured that this is not reality. Like Katie in the beginning of the film, the bus almost runs over them, but they catch themselves before crossing the street. When this happened, both Katie and these freshmen are entering girl world for the first time. The bus serves as a warning against toxic femininity. It is, in and of itself, toxic femininity. If you play into it and become top dog of that game, the game will play you right back. The rules are fair. As much as Regina can use it against Katie, Katie can use it against Regina, and she does. Regina ends up getting run over by this bus as her reputation finally collapses. So how do I interpret this for modern feminism? Well, I believe that the bus represents the idea that toxic femininity and female rivalry are both here to stay, and there's nothing we can do about that. It's not going anywhere, and it's always going to come for us. The question is whether or not you are going to stand in the middle of the road to try and draw attention to yourself at the risk of getting hit by this bus, or are you going to choose to let it pass and cross when it's safe? Women will never get anywhere by trying to outdo one another and gain the most attention. We need to be aware of our toxic femininity and let it pass, lest we partake in it and allow ourselves to be ruined by it. And that is Mean Girls' warning to feminists. I hope you will heed it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked any of my ideas or disagreed with any of them, you can go ahead and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And I just hope we will keep it respectful, as always. But thanks again, and I hope to catch you on my next video. Thanks, bye.